Welcome to Blue Glasses Math. In this podcast, we will explore how our self-perception as math teachers and learners influences our approach to life. Whether you identify as a math enthusiast or not, this podcast is for you. Are you a teacher, a parent, a school administrator, or a student? Join me as we shift our perspective on what it means to be a math person. Let's take a look. Welcome, Dr. Giallanza. I'm so excited to have you here today on Blue Glasses Math. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited.
Oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled to have you. This is like a full circle moment. I was thinking about it this morning as I was walking the dog of like how I wanted to start the conversation. And as I was thinking about it, I was getting full body chills.
Yeah.
So just for the listeners, Rosalyn and I met, gosh, maybe 10 years, could have been 10 years. It could have been 10 years ago, maybe. Rosalyn was teaching you were teaching second grade math, or second grade, and I was your math coach. That was why we first met. But we become, I wouldn't say we became fast friends. I feel like in the beginning it was a little tenuous.
I think we have to be honest.
I think so too.
Okay. So I was teaching second grade bilingual classroom, and you were introduced as the math coach. And I said, oh, good grief. This is all I need. I have a lot on my plate. And you were going to the different classrooms, offering support and guidance. And my main concern was, she's going to come in here. She hasn't bothered to ask me what supports she needs in order to teach my bilingual students. And that was my main concern. How are we going to address mathematics through a multilingual lens?
Yeah. And I certainly do not have that expertise on many levels, right? So I'm not bilingual. I didn't go to school to learn anything about teaching multilingual learners. And I also have a middle school background. So walking into a second grade classroom in itself was terrifying to me. Absolutely terrifying. But I was charged with that job and I came in and I honestly felt like I was deferring to you. I hope I was deferring to you enough. Once we got to know one another and once I was able to let down to be honest, like as an early math coach, there was a lot of ego involved. It was a lot of like, I'm going to come in and help these people. There wasn't this co-creation feeling that I have now, right? I've evolved so much and I think I attribute a lot of that to you and our conversations. No, I'm serious. I feel like you really helped me to understand the importance of listening to the teacher before going in and saying, here are all the best practices, right? It's like finding out where you're coming from.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, I was protective of my students. And I didn't want, as you said, someone coming in and just rattling off things. I wanted there to be a connection as to what the students needed, as opposed to what you needed to teach as a teacher. But luckily enough, we kind of clicked along the way. And it was a give and take when we were teaching. And language got into your vocabulary, math became my vocabulary, and it just became this natural conversation between us, inside and outside of the classroom. And it ultimately led me to where my research got me to, which is really interesting.
Oh my gosh, and we're going to get into that in a minute. But first, let me ask you this, because I don't think I've ever asked you, what is your math story? Like if you could think back to experiences that maybe shaped you as a math person, math teacher, what is your math story?
Well, we're going to go back to second grade, to my second grade. I am a multilingual learner. So in second grade, that's when I realized I did really well with computations. And going back, I remember that I would hit a wall when it came to word problems or anything that was wordy in math. And that stuck with me.
Can I interrupt for a second? So you're a multilingual learner. Were you learning math in second grade in the United States or in your country of origin? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was born here.
You were born here. Okay. Got it. Okay.
My parents are from, my heritage is Puerto Rican.
Got it.
But I grew up here with parents that spoke Spanish. Mm-hmm. And so that stuck with me.
Yeah.
Years later, when I became a teacher, just general elementary teacher, I had some students that were multilingual learners. And I noticed that there was a student who was able to speak English and express herself, but she didn't have a very good grasp of mathematical concepts.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She had a hard time explaining the concepts behind it and her reasoning. On the other hand, I had another multilingual learner who did not have the English language or wasn't proficient enough to explain it, but she was able to explain it to me in Spanish.
Hmm.
And without a background in ESL or bilingual bicultural studies, I said, hey, my concern is that she understands math in whatever language it is. So I had that notion of it's more important for you to explain to me what you know than the language that you say it in.
So can I ask you in your experience as a second grader, as Rosalind as a second grader, do you feel like the word problem, because you were good with the computation, do you feel like the word problem was an issue with the language or was it with the math?
It's see
Or
the thing
both? Or both?
it's both. And
Mm-hmm.
years later, in my own research, I came to understand that language, mathematics, it's all connected. You can't separate it. And that's the issue. You cannot separate it. Because in order to understand math, you have to be able to talk about math. And that's where discourse comes into play.
Ah, got it. So what's something do you feel like could have helped you as that second grader then to get you over that hurdle? Or is there something that helped you?
I no, no, that continued on. And that stayed with me, even as I became a teacher, as how I taught and the mistakes I made along the way. Um, for me, I think that there's a notion of uh, the schooling of mathematics or the schooling of any discipline. You have to be taught how to speak as a mathematician. You have to be able to argue and explain. And it's through that discussion that you learn mathematics. Just taking that out, you're not learning mathematics because mathematics is comprised of all those practices um, uh, and discourse. It's part of it. I had the opportunity to speak at the Graduate School of Education to pre-service teachers. And before I spoke, I had one student, she was so excited. She says, oh, I just wanted to share with you, this is what we do with my cooperating teacher. She says, when we get to word problems, we remove all the language and we give them the computation. And I said, hold that thought, and we're going to discuss how important it is to have that language in. Because if you don't have that language, you're not teaching mathematics to its fullest.
Yeah, exactly. It's so interesting because I remember when I first started coaching teachers with English language learners in their classroom. And I thought, okay, well, the best thing to do when we're doing word problems is to give the kids a translated list of all the words that are going to be in the word problems for this section. And then and this is like way before AI or Chat GPT or anything that could actually help us with something like that now, which I know is completely the wrong thing to do. But at the moment, I was like, this is survival. And then I'm thinking, how are we going to do this? If every lesson has 5 or 6 word problems, I can't possibly front load all the interpret, because the teacher at that time said to me, it's not the math, it's the words. And so, but that was before I met you. That was when I was coaching middle school at the time.
If I could just add something to that,
Please, yeah.
something really important. And I think one of the main strategies, even when I was in workshops and PDs, the individual that would come in would say, oh, here are the vocabulary. That's the strategy. Or even if you look at the resource books in mathematics, and you'll see a whole list of vocabulary words. You need to address language at the word level, the phrase level, and at the sentence level. So Even
Wait,
if
say that again. Say that again, because I think people need to hear this. It's
you
not just
need
the words.
you need to address mathematics or any subject for that matter on at the word level, phrase level, and at the sentence level. And we're going to bring in an example that I know you love in my class. But just think about it, the rationale behind it. Just because a student knows what um, a word in math means doesn't mean that they understand or are able to contextualize that word within the word problem or within the task that's being asked.
Yes, 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 yes,
So,
yes.
for instance,
Yeah,
we had an example, and you
we
were
did.
teaching more than, more less, and we had the visuals, we had the uh, the manipulatives, and you kept on saying more than, more than, and I said it's the word phrase they're not getting. And there was a little boy, and he had the manipulatives, and I said, and it was like, what was it? Who has, how many more does the other student have? And he couldn't understand how many more.
Okay, so for example, Rosalind has 8 jelly beans, and Pam has 6 jelly beans. How many more jelly beans does Rosalind have than Pam? So it was like that type of more than problem. Okay.
Right. So I interjected and I said, can I just say one thing? I said, how many extra? And he says, oh, sure, it's this. But then I went back and I said, okay, now when we're mathematicians speaking as mathematicians, we say so and so has this. So explaining it in everyday language, but then putting back the mathematics, the academic terms in it. So yeah,
And I think I remember you saying something like you have to teach both ways, right? If you're teaching how many more than, then they have to also understand how many less than,
less,
and they
exactly.
go together. And the really important context that we didn't mention yet is this student I think had been in the United States for maybe a couple of days. Like he was brandy new. And so everything was new to him. Sitting in circle on a carpet was new to him. Sitting, with manipulatives, like what are these red and there are those primary color red and yellow and blue tiles, right? Those plastic tiles. I see them right over there on my desk, and I'm like, all these things, and we expect these kids to like walk
Mhm.
in and hit the ground running,
Yeah.
and and I remember we were literally sitting on the carpet, and I remember when the light bulb moment went off for him, and it was after you said it's not the math, it's the language.
And we also have to keep in mind, this is really important. Mathematics and the language of mathematics is more difficult for students than say reading, writing, science, social studies.
Why is that?
Students are exposed to reading and writing outside of the classroom.
Mm.
Science, we see it on TV, we see shows, social studies. We see all these elements in our society. But when you have mathematics, you don't have that conversation about mathematics at the dinner table. I have yet to have my kids tell me, Mom, you did a phenomenal job with that asparagus. They're parallel to each other, as opposed to last week where they were a complete mess and they were perpendicular to each other. So it doesn't happen.
It doesn't.
And then you take that a step further and you look at students who come from a low socioeconomic community, and they even have those academic conversations, perhaps even less. So
Yes.
when they're in our classroom within those 45 to an hour block, we really have to work on, not just showing or teaching computation and practice and proficiency, but really getting to our students in understanding what is being asked and also in how they defend and argue.
Ooh, defending and arguing in math class, one of my favorite things. One of my favorite things to talk about. And I think you're right. I think we, I know in my experience, seeing as many classrooms as I've been in, it is a struggle, even for me as a math coach, to be like, We need to go deeper than just knowing how to add and subtract and multiply and divide, right?
But I think that it's something that makes teachers perhaps uncomfortable.
Yeah,
I know it did for me, I'll
for
be
sure.
honest. And you begin to reflect, maybe I'm not a good teacher. So we
Mm.
kind of avoid those uncomfortable conversations. So I think in the beginning of the year, you have to kind of establish that uncomfortable feeling for everybody
Ooh.
and say, you know what? This is scary for me too. I was wrong. I thought, Carlos brought something up, and you know what? I didn't think of it that way. And having that comfort with your students, and it takes time to get them out of their shell, and you have to be creative as well as to how to get them engaged in those conversations.
Yeah. I think you hit it with getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? And having that be that's part of school, right? It's not about making everything like the quickest and easiest and dirtiest way to get to the answer or the solution. Actually, yeah. 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 Okay, so you taught for second grade, and then you went to graduate school,
Did.
and I was so excited to know when you made that decision that you were like, okay, there's more for me out
Yeah.
in this world.
It was, you know what? It was still those questions, from that little girl, that 7-year-old girl who couldn't understand what is the deal with math and language. It was a question that still persisted, even, becoming a bilingual and an ESL teacher. It's still, and teaching students, it's still stuck in my head. And I had to go back and I said, I have to dig in deep.
Yeah, and you did,
I
and you
did.
did, and
I
you
did.
did, and you did, and you've come out of your dissertation writing. We all those people who are listening who have written a dissertation, they know, or a book, or gone through anything in their life that really is a struggle, but it's something that's a goal and a dream. We know that after that last chapter is handed in and after all the revisions are done, you have this moment of like, okay,
Yeah.
woo. And so,
And
yeah,
I feel that I grew so much with what I learned. And I saw myself throughout the dissertation in different stages. I saw myself as a student when teachers described their classroom and their students. I saw myself as the teacher with the participants when they describe certain things. I'm like, oh, I did that too. No judgment here.
yes, yes,
And I think that's part of when you know more, you do better. But at the same time, you have to acknowledge that you didn't know, and it's okay. But going forward, I meet teachers where they're at and say, okay, you know what? This is what it was, but let's do better. Let's add to what you already know, or
yeah.
maybe change things a little bit.
Isn't that so parallel to what we want to do with the students too?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Okay, so let's give the listeners a little more context about what did you go you went back to grad school and you studied, let's talk about obviously language and math, but let's go a little deeper.
Okay.
Tell me about your study.
Okay. So
In a way that listeners aren't going to be like, "Oh my god, here they go talking about
okay.
their
No, no, no,
dissertations,
no,
blah
no.
blah."
I won't.
Okay.
I won't do that. So my dissertation was multilingual learners and mathematical discourse, and examining teacher beliefs and practices, because what teachers believe influence their practice.
Yes, ma'am.
One and the same. And as I mentioned before, mathematical discourse is essential to learning. So knowing what research says about math and talking about math is important, but we also know what is believed about multilingual learners.
Yes. That's huge.
You know,
Huge, right?
and I'm going to just give you like really, really quick.
Please, no, please.
Deficit views. We can't teach language or we can't teach mathematics until they understand the language. So we're going to pare it down to just the practices, computations. They're great at computations, but when we get to those word problems, they can't do it. And what that says is that students need support. But also, in the same way that we shouldn't look at multilingual learners from a deficit point of view, I think it's important to focus on how we can support teachers.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt you for a second
Yes.
because the other day I was talking to a teacher and I used that word, deficit. I said, we need to get rid of deficit language. And the teacher looked at me and said, what do you mean? She didn't understand what I meant by deficit language. And I'm thinking, okay, people like you and I, we throw these terms around.
Mm-hmm.
And even though we know what the word deficit means, this teacher had just used deficit language. And it's not a plain, it was just not knowing better, right? Not knowing, not in the moment. Teachers are under so much pressure. And I get that. And when I said we need to be careful about our deficit language, and I was trying to be very gentle about it, she said, I don't understand what you mean by what does that mean?
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah.
And I'll give you an example.
Yeah, great.
Let's talk about PLCs.
Great.
And we're talking about mathematics. And teachers say, first thing, they can't do.
XYZ.
Right?
Whatever it is.
In there. Now, excuse me.
Yeah.
If you're being observed and you're meeting your administrator and your administrator starts hitting you with everything they saw wrong, deficit. But if they begin with, I really liked XYZ, you had this skill there, you were able to do. Tell me what the student is able to do. What do you know about the student? What can you leverage? Can leverage their culture, leverage their language, leverage what they already know. So you have to get to know your student and then say, oh, how can I get him or her to do this?
Mm-hmm.
It sounds so much different.
100%.
And it leads you down a path where you're growing and you're seeking for an answer as opposed to just a frustration dump saying they can't do. Next thing you know, you have 5 teachers joining in saying the same thing. And at the end of the PLC, did we come out with a plan? There's no plan. So that's what you and I mean by deficit.
Yep. And, to even build off of what you're saying, I think about what you said in the like a couple minutes ago about in the beginning of the school year, sometimes we need to get comfortable with being uncomfortable with those hard conversations and maybe with the silence that the student gives us, right? Like be okay with it because it's part of a processing. They're trying to think, right? And not be like, oh my gosh, they just don't get it because it's been 30 seconds. It's about our expectations. And also a lot of what you just said is about seeing the student as a human being with culture and context and everything else.
And another word I like to bring into this conversation is knowing your biases.
Ooh.
Biases, we all have them, even though we say, I treat all my students the same. No, we shouldn't treat all our students the same. And we have biases
Yes.
towards mathematics, based on how we were taught, based on what is expected from the district, biases about our students, how we position our students.
Ooh.
That's
Yes.
a powerful one. For
Positioning.
instance, and I have done this too, knowingly, where I would say, who's going to help Mary today? Who's going to help her? Who? Can someone help her today? I need a partner. What that does is we are not giving her credit for knowing anything.
Yes.
It is putting her in this vulnerable position in her class while we're elevating another student. So we are creating these narratives, these stories for our students. And we have to be very careful the story that we give each of our students.
Wow, I just got chills, full body chills. Think about that. Every interaction that happens in these classrooms, every interaction. And it's like, I know teachers have a lot on their plates, but it's thinking about if you're in a faculty meeting and the administrator positions Mrs. So-and-so over Mr. So-and-so, it's the same thing. How would you feel?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we have the best of intentions.
Of course.
I was looking for a helper, and the kids are like, "Oh, I'll help them. I'll help them."
Kids love to help.
But then, how does that other kid feel? It's like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
So going back to discourse, if that student feels that they don't have anything to contribute, their contributions aren't being acknowledged by the teacher, am I going to want to talk to you about math?
No, thanks. I'm out.
Yeah. So
And
these
this,
little things that we do consciously, unconsciously,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. Can we talk about positioning a little bit more? I just want to go more into positioning. All right. Actually, maybe we'll talk about teacher identity. Let's talk about that. So you said, or teacher beliefs. You said beliefs, not identity, right? Okay.
I said both.
Okay. So
There's
teacher
a lot,
beliefs.
there's a lot to cover.
It's a lot. So what did you find when what was something that surprised you because you interviewed teachers, right? Grades, was it elementary school teachers?
Oh, this is really important. Not much research has been done on the elementary side. And I think we have on the university, academia, and on the high school side where a teacher is teaching one subject, mathematics.
Got it, yes.
But elementary was really important to me. And also, it was important to me for a few reasons. I did first, second, and third grade. I excluded kindergarten because they haven't really gotten into the reading and the writing portion. First,
Okay.
second, and third did. So, with that, I lost my train of thought.
That's okay. I'll get you back on track.
Get me back.
So the question was, you interviewed teachers of multilingual learners,
Okay.
and you were like going into their beliefs. You chose grade 1, 2, and 3 because of the language development, the reading, the writing, all of that. And what was something that surprised you?
Okay. The majority of the teachers believe mathematics is universal. So if any subject multilingual learners were going to do well in, it's mathematics.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Okay, fair.
Mathematics is not universal.
Oh.
That is a misconception.
And I'm not laughing because I didn't think people knew that, but I'm like, no, it's not, because I've learned that myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So mathematics, all multilingual learners do well in until it is embedded in language.
Mm-hmm.
So once the language came in, oh, they can't do it. Oh, they can't talk about it. They can't think. They just can't do it. Another interesting thing was that teachers' beliefs ran the gamut, and it was along a continuum. And what they thought of their multilingual students kind of guided how they approach mathematics.
Okay, so it was their beliefs about the multilingual, their beliefs about the kids.
Right, and their
Okay.
and their abilities.
Okay.
And even those teachers that believed multilingual learners could do the math, the support and scaffolding was universal. In other words, they just did good. They thought if they did good teaching, that would support multilingual learners. But these were strategies that were applicable for all students. And the strategies that they used were on the spot. They were not intentionally planned beforehand. They didn't pre-plan these strategies for the student.
Okay, so these are like in the moment.
In the moment. Also, they had teacher to student conversations or peer to peer conversations.
Okay.
So the teachers remove themselves as the form of support. So if you take peer to peer, there was no review or understanding, well, what are they talking about? Did the student express themselves in a way that attributed his understanding of mathematics? Or are they just having a conversation?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Like, did they structure the conversation? They give the student something, you have to talk about this. Or not have to, but like, we'd like you to talk about this.
So it's turn and talk.
Mm-hmm.
Turn and talk to your partner. Well, what are the sentence stems? What is the support? What are they actually talking about? Um, and teacher to student. There were conversations, but it wasn't broadcast, it wasn't shared with the class.
Mm-hmm.
So the ability for multilingual students to have these conversations were very confined.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things also, I call it, I have it written down here, math talks, I want to just brush up on. There is this misnomer, and teachers may not know this, but when I ask teachers, oh, they talk all the time, meaning turn in talks, and we do math talks. Now, math talks are about 10, 12 minutes long.
Yeah. And some people call them number talks, right? Number talks, math talks. Okay, got it.
Right.
Uh-huh.
So out of a 45-minute hour classroom, and those conversations, they're meant to be very concise. So that's what you're hanging your hat on. But they participated in number talks. They do number talks all the time.
Okay. So you're saying that doing the number talk is not enough. No.
No.
Got it. I'm just
No.
right.
And because it says number talk, they say, oh, they do number talks all the time. Okay, but that's maybe 10 to 12 minutes out of your whole block. Maybe they said something.
Well, that's the thing, right? In a number talk,
They
it's
won't
usually
talk for 10, 12 minutes.
no, it's usually like it's a whole class, right? Setting, and some students are contributing and other students are not. And I can see even in my own when I do a number talk, it's very hard as a teacher to make sure that everybody has a time to talk. But that 10 to 12 minutes, you're right. It's probably, if anything, they're getting 30 seconds to talk if everybody has a chance to talk.
I mean, it's a valuable part of the math class,
Of course.
but it's not to take the place of having your multilingual learner engage in full mathematical discourse.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you were saying before, this mathematical discourse is not happening anywhere else. It's not happening anywhere else. And I'm a math coach. I don't even talk about math at the dinner table with my kids. In fact, my son's he's a junior in high school. If I bring up math at the dinner table, he's going to leave. So.
And I just want to bring up one thing, if I may.
Yeah, please.
The complexity. And I think, and I talk about word problems because that's where I guess teachers can readily see the language in it. But if you think about the linguistic features, we have comparatives, prepositions, passive voice, reversals, logic connectors, and then you add the mathematics to it. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah. And all those words that you just said, I don't know what half of them mean. Because those are language words. Those are words about developing language, right? Am I right about that?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I figured that out in context. But I'm thinking, oh my gosh, it's a lot. And it needs to develop over time too, right? It's just like lifting at the gym, right? It's multiple reps.
And the important thing, going back to one of your original questions, the grade level that I decided to study, first, second, and third, math is cumulative. Mm-hmm. So if you're, along, with the vocabulary, but it's just not the vocabulary, it's the ability to formulate an argument, to explain yourself. And we start in the early grades. So if we're not doing this in first, second, and third, by the time we go to fourth and up in middle school, they don't have that muscle. Mm-mm. They haven't developed that ability to use these words in a way that expresses mathematical thinking. And, you look at state testing where they have to explain things. And then the teacher would say, well, I taught them this. But did you taught them the math? I shouldn't say math. You taught them the practice, the computation.
Yeah, the content.
Yes.
Well, yes, kind of, not. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to dance around that for a second because the content, we think the content is just the raw multiplication division, but the content really is the whole understanding of it. And I think that's where we really need to remind everybody.
And I'm going to repeat myself. It can't be separated. It's together.
Yeah, totally. In order to really understand it. Okay. So let's suppose you were going to meet a second or third grade teacher tomorrow and they say, I have a class with 8 multilingual learner students in there. I have special ed students. I have which are separate from this multilingual, because that's the other beef I have, is that there are many times where I see a multilingual student thrown into a special education class, and I'm thinking, this student is not special education.
I had one participant tell me, I treat multilingual learners the way I treat special ed in terms of support, totally different support.
Yeah, totally different support. Teachers need support and help with this. So let's help some teachers. All right. So if we're going to spend the next few minutes just talking about, all right, I'm an elementary school teacher. I have to teach everything, right? Math is just 60 minutes of my day. I have multilingual learners. I have special education students in my classroom. I have regular ed students in my classroom. I have a mix. What are some things that I could do that would not just help my multilingual students, but also help everybody else in the classroom and help me as a teacher shift my beliefs about my students? So that's a huge, long question. We could probably talk about it for 30 minutes, but maybe let's start. Let's give it a shot.
The basic, you have to know your students' abilities. You have to meet students where they're at.
And talk more about abilities, like abilities in what?
What are their abilities in reading, writing, speaking, listening? What do they like? What's their cultural background? What are some of their experiences? And being able to talk to your students and jotting down little things and making notes for yourself. Assessing students in different ways, particularly for multilingual learners. You can have a multilingual learner in your classroom that hasn't been classified. A student that is classified as a multilingual learner will receive ESL services. There are students, either they've tested out based on their WIDA scores, or a parent can say, I don't want the student receiving ESL services.
Oh, I didn't realize that. They can
So regardless of those two situations,
yeah.
you can have a student that still needs support in language. So that's one thing. So assessing them in different ways, looking at their work.
I wanted to go there next. Yeah, what does it mean to? Because the assessment is a hot topic for me. It gets me fired up, but the assessment doesn't have to be like a test.
No.
And it could it be quick?
Informal assessments.
Informal assessments, like, for example.
Okay. So a student in any subject, there's 4 language domains: reading, writing, speaking, listening.
Got it.
And they don't hold, when you have multilingual learners, they may be at different levels of English proficiency. Some may be, great at, more efficient at listening or speaking. They may have trouble with writing. That's normally the one that's the hardest one. But knowing where they are. So for instance, if you know your students are weaker in writing, then you're going to have supports more tailored towards writing.
Got it.
If they have trouble decoding, then you're going to have more supports in order to help them read that passage. And one of the things, WIDA has standards for language, and they have standards for every domain.
Okay.
So they have mathematical standards.
Interesting.
What language can I develop with my students? So I'm going to take a step back now.
Yeah, go. Yeah.
So WIDA is just one of the markers. It's not, for me at least, I look at multiple points of data. But if you see that, and WIDA will say, if your student's able to do this, then they're level 1. If they're able to do X, Y, Z, they're level 2. So they address the 4 different language domains. So if I know my student is weaker in the mathematical domain of reading, it'll say, oh, by this level, they should be able to do X, Y, Z. So now I have goals. When you have goals, you have something to reach for. If you have goals and that student's not at that point, then I know I have to create supports to get them to that point.
Got it.
So all of a sudden, once you start putting all these pieces together, this student is at this point, I need to have him at this point. Okay, what language within mathematics can I address? So it goes hand in hand
Yeah.
with practice.
Makes sense. Okay. So like, is there a practice that an elementary school teacher could do, like, that would be easy? I don't want to say easy. Not overcomplicated. Easy is not the word I'm looking for, right? That, because I think sometimes teachers get overwhelmed with all of this. I think, okay, well, I've got 25 students and I've got this many discipline problems and I've got da 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 da. And I know I'm kind of taking this from a very negative lens, but it's like, it's the reality of sometimes teachers, they just have a lot on their plates. So what's something that they could do that would be simple, accessible, easy, that's not overcomplicated?
Okay, setting language objectives.
Okay.
Language objectives, if you think about a math practice, it's not something that students master in a day, 2 days. So language is not something students master either in a day or
Right,
two.
right.
So, teachers that I've had experience with would get wound up. Oh my God, language objectives. I was like, but I don't do I don't change my language objectives every day.
Yes, right.
So I would have them on the board.
Mm-hmm.
For instance, today I will use the word because when I explain my mathematical thinking,
Simple.
something off the top of my head.
Yep.
And I would have the students read their language objectives for each discipline at the beginning of each subject. And they would have to use certain words, or they would have to, today students will explain. Today students will label.
Okay.
Today students will, like something
And
where
these are
where it's language based.
And these are universal that you want every student to do
You
anyway,
know,
right? Yeah.
yeah. And I'm trying to think of some. Uh, just thinking of, and WIDA comes in very handy for this, developing what I'm going to focus on in terms of language. And that could be over for the course of the week.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
just focus on that. And it builds. You don't teach everything for the year in 1 week.
No.
You're building each
Yeah.
week. So I think that's what scares teachers, is that language builds just like with any other discipline. Mathematics, you're building that math knowledge, that math muscle. You're doing the same thing bit by bit with language as well, in unison, in conjunction with math.
Like in parallel, right? Like there's asparagus. Yeah. Yeah. And it's so important. So important. And I thank you so much for everything that you're doing that's like thoughtful leadership about helping teachers who teach multilingual learners, because we have so many of them. We're in New Jersey and we have so many everywhere you go. I think teachers need the support
And I think
and deserve the
it's
support.
it's really important that teachers know that general ed teachers can be teachers of language too.
Yes.
It's not an ESL thing.
Mm-mm.
It's not the ESL teacher, because the ESL teacher comes in to maybe 1 or 2 periods in a classroom. So if your period happens not to be math, then who's giving the language support in that classroom?
Right.
The general teacher is.
Right.
So I think with more students being mainstreamed, more multilingual learners being mainstreamed in the general ed classroom, it's important that we support those general ed teachers in what can they do and have an understanding of what is mathematics, what can we do to support multilingual learners. So I think we really do have to teach teachers how to support. We need to support teachers in general.
In general, they just need support and they deserve it. And, and that support is going to help them to shift their beliefs about what multilingual learners need, deserve, and can do. That they're children just like everybody else in your classroom.
Yes,
Yeah?
absolutely.
Awesome. So as we wrap up, I feel like we could talk all day because, this could be like a full day workshop. Maybe it will be one day.
Yeah, hopefully.
Stay tuned. I'm looking at my notes. What's something that gives you hope? What's something that gives you hope in the math education space, or in education in general?
I think if that 7-year-old girl that grew up in poverty, not knowing the language, could go through the school system and come on the other side of it and embrace her mistakes and still power through and say, there's something more, then that's my hope. Others can do it too.
Dr. Rosalyn Giallanza, I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have you here. And I hear you. I hear you loud and clear. Is that it's just having that dream and going for it and having the supports along the way. So
thank you so much for having me.
Thanks
this is
so much.
Wonderful.
It's really fun, really fun. Okay, how can people get in touch with you if people wanted to connect with you beyond the podcast and are curious?
Yes,
about learning more.
Yes, Rosalyn. Well, let's discuss this. We're gonna.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to give out my email.
Nope.
And then all of a sudden it comes back to me, and I don't know how long I have Rutgers.
Oh, so why don't we are you on like LinkedIn or anything like that?
Yes. Okay.
LinkedIn, right?
Oh, okay. You can get in touch with me through LinkedIn.
Great. Perfect. Okay. So LinkedIn, and it's just Rosalyn Giallanza, right? Is your handle there? Perfect. Awesome. I'll put it in the show notes. And you can always look at Rosalyn's dissertation if you wanted to dig a little deeper. All you have to do is Google her name, which I did both in preparation for this episode. It's so fun.
Yeah,
so fun. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much for being human and being an amazing human being. And thank you for being my friend.
So thank you for the years of support. And I still remember when I called you into my classroom and I said, "You think I could do my dissertation? What do you think?"
And I said yes, and we both cried.
Yeah.
And hugged.
Yeah.
Because it's a labor of love, but if you have it in you.
It's a full circle moment for me. So thank you. Thank you for having me.
Totally. Of course. So fun. All right. Thank you. I'll have you again because I think we're going to dig a little deeper into some of these strategies.
I think we should pick a few topics.
Yeah.
And really dig.
Yeah. So if you're still hanging on this episode and you're listening, what topics do you want to hear? Send us a message. What more do you want to know about teaching multilingual learners? That's going live.
Good times.
Yeah, really good times. All right. Thanks, Rosalyn.
Thanks.
I'm Pam Brett. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode of Blue Glasses Math. Please follow me wherever you get your podcasts and follow along on the conversation on Instagram. And remember, being a math person is all just a matter of perspective.